Welcome to Front Porch Lawyer, where we address the humanity of lawyering. Many attorneys are winning battles in the courtroom, but losing battles in their lives. From interpersonal relationships to stress management, Front Porch Lawyer explores topics that improve your practice, your lifestyle, and even your love life. Leave feeling a little more inspired with a smile on your face. Here's your host, Francine Tone.
Hi, I'm Francine Tone, and welcome to my front porch. Today I thought we'd get into a little brain science and talk about chronic stress and why this is important for lawyers. This is part one of a two-part series. So let's start by watching this video. Ever feel like that warthog? When I show this video and ask that question in front of an audience, live audience, when I'm presenting the CLE course, everyone nods their head yes. I've yet to meet a lawyer who hasn't felt like that warthog at some point in their career. And yet, I bet you've never been chased by a lion, but you kind of know what it feels like. So let's take a closer look at what is happening with this warthog. And spoiler alert, when I'm talking about the warthog, I'm talking about you too. So when a warthog sees a lion, its brain releases tons of chemicals associated with stress like testosterone, adrenaline, and cortisol. It's as if a tap were opened, releasing these chemicals. And when the tap gets open, the chemicals do two things. First, it sends the energy it needs to body parts that is necessary to escape the danger. And it also shuts down bodily functions that are not necessary to escape the danger. So for example, with the warthog needs to run really fast. So its cardiovascular system is going to get a boost. And his legs are going to get a boost so that the legs can move and run faster than ever. But it does not need its immune system, does not need its reproductive system, digestive system, and if it had a cerebral cortex with high executive functions like we do, it wouldn't need that either. So those functions are shut down temporarily. And when the warthog has outrun the lion and the lion is gone, the warthog saunters back to the mud hole and is like this guy, happy to be back in his mud hole. And the thought-out lion is gone. All the stress chemicals are going down. The stress chemical tap has been turned off. And another tap gets turned on for good chemicals. And the release of good chemicals has two functions. The first is certain chemicals are released in order to counteract the chemicals that were released at stress, because they need to be shut down. The chemicals that are in your system need to be counteracted so that you can be done with the stress. Then additional good chemicals are released to bring the warthog back to normal so that he can go back being content in his mud bath. The key here is that the stress tap has to turn off completely so that the two-part good feeling tap can turn on. The same thing happens to you and to me. Now, there are two kinds of stress. Acute stress is good stress, and that's what the warthog was experiencing when it needed to survive. So acute stress is good, it helps us. Experiencing stress in these brief periods of time is fine, just like in the case of the warthog. But once the immediate danger is over, we need that stress tap to shut off completely. Now, when we evolved, we were faced with the same real threats, like lions eating us, just like the warthog faces today. And our brain's response to danger evolved the same way as that of the warthog. We'll put my picture. When our stress tap fails to shut down, it becomes the second kind of stress, chronic stress, which can be deadly. Chronic stress today is probably public enemy number one. It's a silent killer because until you become aware of all the stressors in your life and learn to manage them well, the stress tap stays on, wreaking havoc on our bodies and our brains. Now, chronic stress results from repeated and constant exposure to situations that lead to the release of stress chemicals. And it becomes severely impactful when it is sustained and prolonged and exceeds your ability to manage it well. Yeah, your brain's only function is to keep you alive. And when your brain perceives a threat, it responds quickly, without thought, without rationality, just like in the case of the warthog. And when we built modern society and locked up all the lions so there was none chasing us, that function in our brain, in our body, did not change. So imagine driving in the winter and you hit an ice patch. Your car swerves. Your body reacts instantly, even before you even thought about it, which is good because you need that instant response. Then when you get the car back in control, you start to calm down, which is great. And ideally in a few moments, you're calm again and relaxed. That's stress on and then stress off. Our brains evolved to respond to life-threatening physical threats, but this development was with one response, and now it responds the same way to all threats. All threats, whether they're real, potential, perceived, or even imaginary. Today, most of us are not in danger of being eaten by big animals, but we still enter that proverbial dark cave in our minds. Any perception by your lower brain that you are being threatened triggers the response. It doesn't matter if the threat is real or imaginary, big or small. The first title I came up with for my chronic stress CLE course was Don't Let Invisible Lions Eat You, because we lawyers face invisible lions every day. Events and moments that are perceived by our brains as threats. The threat does not have to be big, like I said. So in the morning on your way out, if you have a big argument with your spouse, that could turn on your stress tap. The legal profession is particularly susceptible to stressors because lawyers are society's problem solvers. And problems often give rise to negative feelings like anxiety, worry, uncertainty, frustration, and other negative emotions, which the brain perceives as a threat. Lawyers have so many stressors in their lives that lawyers' normal typically is living with this low hum of stress all day long. This means cortisol is being dripped into your system constantly. So imagine this, on your way to work, you're almost in an accident, a close call, stress on. At that moment, tap is full on. And as you get to work, your brain is trying to turn the stress off. But as you walk in the door, you start facing deadlines, unhappy staff members, denied motions, angry client, opposing counsel, and the phone doesn't stop ringing. Your faucet never shuts down. Instead, it's leaking, drip, drip, drip. When the cortisol tap is dripping, all your other bodily functions like your immune system, digestive system, and executive functions are not fully functional. And a cortisol drip is like dripping acid on your brain. Yes. And your brain mass actually shrinks under chronic stress. Man, when I learned this, my first thought was, oh no, I have invested way too much time, effort, and money on my brain. I need to stop this. And so do you. But this chronic dripping of cortisol is the reason why so many illnesses and medical problems are associated with stress, such as burnout, divorce, anxiety, depression, cardiovascular disease, neurological disorders, stroke, and it's even been linked to diabetes, cancer, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, and Alzheimer's. Can you do something about it? Yes, because there is good news. And the good news I'm going to cover in part 2. So in part 2, I'm going to talk a little bit more about some specific sources of a lawyer's stress and then talk about the good news. But because you may want to not wait until part 2, I'm going to give you a link to my handout, which is called Effects of Chronic Stress on Lawyers, which contains more information about what I just spoke about, but also includes how to fix the leak in your cortisol tap. And as always, send me in your feedback, anything you have, questions, if you've got ideas for topics, send them to me by email, and I'll be happy to cover them. Be sure to follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube so you don't miss episodes. And thank you for joining me on my front porch. This is Francine Tone and Front Porch Lawyer, and I'll see you next time.